I'm inspired by a lot of people, right? And I've met a lot of people in my time. One of the most amazing people that I've met in my travels across this continent, 47 out of 54 countries. And I was always intrigued about the history of South Africa, especially modern South Africa, and how, they struggled for independence. So when Mandela and the rest of the Robben Island folks were busy, spending years, decades in prison, there was another group called the Exiles fighting for the freedom of the country. There was no, there was sometimes you couldn't fight the apartheid system because it was too powerful. You couldn't fight them head on, but you could fight them from exile. And in places like Lusaka, ANC had its headquarters actually in Lusaka, Zambia, and they had headquarters also in Tanzania. They had headquarters in what they call the frontline states.
That even tells me the relationship between Tanzania and South Africa.
Tight.
From South Africa to Tanzania, you don't need a visa to go to South Africa.
Yes. And the national anthems are the same tune. Kosi Nsikelele Africa and the Tanzanian one, same tune.
Wow, and the story about Nelson Mandela in Tanzania,
yes.
where it his shoes? I don't know what
correct.
was the story around
correct,
it.
Correct, correct. And also they taught him how to fight. Also, not just Tanzania, Nigeria was very helpful to the South Africans. Liberia, the one we talk about now, where
George Weah
is about to become
president.
What a story. That was for another day. So there were some countries, and by the way, Kenya wasn't included in that for some reason.
Kenya, we've been selfish for a long time.
Extremely.
It's extremely
and
selfish.
This is why we're paying for all our sins.
Yes.
This is why. So, while in South Africa, I'd always wanted to meet two people. Of course, Nelson Mandela, and the other one was Thabo Mbeki. Because Thabo Mbeki was the brains behind the African National Congress movement. He spent most of his life in exile because his dad, Govan Mbeki, was in prison with Mandela. Was in Robben Island right there with Mandela, Govan Mbeki. So his son now was the one leading the African National Congress movement outside South Africa. So in London, he would be mobilizing, organizing trips, organizing meetings and conferences just to, let people know, always let people know that this brutal system of apartheid was destroying, the black population. So anyway, from London, he would now fly back to Africa. He would be in Dar one time, he'd be in Lusaka another time, he'd be in Liberia, Nigeria, all over, fighting all the time. And because they were wanted people, they were wanted by the apartheid government, they couldn't stay in one place too long. There were too many spies. People would know about them, and a lot of them were killed, by the way, in exile.
Wow.
As spies, as the terrorists. The apartheid government called them terrorists. So Thabo Mbeki and the people in exile, their lives were always in danger. Always. They couldn't stay in one place too long. So the story goes, get ready for the story goes. Thabo was married, or is married to Zanele Mbeki, and they had one child, a boy. So and the boy would be growing up with the mother sometimes, and because the father was always on the road, always on the run, always plotting and doing stuff. So one time they planned, him and his wife, they planned, let's go meet. I would like to meet my son. I forgot his name. Let's in Lusaka. I think it was in Lusaka, right? So they arranged through the ANC. I'd like to meet my boy. He's turning 18. I'd like to meet him, and before I go on to my next mission. I said, no problem. Let's meet. Let's say Friday, 2 p.m. Make sure you're at this and this place. So as usual, Thabo Mbeki arrives on time because very timely person. And he waited. And he waited. And he waited. And these guys never showed up. And those days, back in the 70s, there were no cell phones, obviously. And you couldn't use landlines because it was always very dangerous. So he waited and waited and waited longer than he should have, because obviously if you wait too long, someone may know you're around. So he left there, and he went to the next point, and he told the guys, listen, I was supposed to meet my son with our comrades, and they never showed up. And they said, yeah, we got the same news. We don't know what happened to them. So he agonized for days, for weeks, he agonized. What happened to my son? What happened? Up until South Africa was granted independence in 1994, he never knew what happened to his son. Completely disappeared. Never to be seen again.
To date?
His only child. It was during the TJRC, the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission, led by Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Two former white intelligence officers admitted, because you could go there, admit, and you'd be pardoned. The two of them admitted that they had abducted Thabo's son, and they went and killed him and dumped the body, they mentioned someplace, or dipped it in acid, whatever it was, and made it disappear. They couldn't remember where they put it, because obviously, their mission was just to annihilate people. They couldn't remember, but they admitted that they had abducted that boy that day and made him disappear. Can you imagine Thabo living with that all those years? For more than 20 years, then up until 1994. But at the same time, he's still fighting for the liberation of that country. The commitment of those people. Mandela becomes the first president. Mandela says, I'm going to do one term, and then I'm going to hand over. Hands over to Thabo. Thabo is still, he's still agonizing with his past. He's still got demons to deal with. And he's got this new ANC made up of exiles, and made up of people who actually spend time in prison in Robben Island and other places. So there was a tug of war right there. He's in power now. There's a tug of war between those who fought on the ground and those who were considered exiles. Can you imagine all that conflict, all that back and forth, still knowing my son could have been, 30, 40 years old today. He had no other children. But his commitment, his soul, his passion was to one organization, one country. Was ANC in South Africa. Can you imagine? To this day, when I met him on one time, we were going to Julius Nyerere's funeral in Tanzania. I think 1996, if I'm not mistaken. We were heading there, and we actually got a ride on his plane. He was heading there as frontline states, again, the relationship between South Africa and Tanzania. They were heading to Mwalimu. They called him Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. Mwalimu's funeral in Dar. And we flew the 4 hours together, and we were chatting on the plane. And he says, ours is a complicated life, Jeff. You have to, once you commit yourself to something, you can't extricate yourself. You can't wake up tomorrow and say, no, I'm tired now. I want to do something else. Once you're committed for life. And that's what he said about the ANC. We are committed for life. This is not about us. It's not about individuals. It's about the movement and the country. Incredible, incredible man. He just turned 70 the other day, and I met him when he was here during the elections. Thabo. Oh, what a man. What a story.
And that is
a story a day.
It's the Hot Breakfast with Jeff and Jelano.